Welcome to the Coachzing Show, offering you the latest creative content marketing tips to help you work less, earn more, and help more people. Are you a coach zinger yet? Join the community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers come to discover the latest industry trends and partner with other like-minded professionals. Go to coachzing.com/community to join. And now, here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello, welcome back to the Coachzing Show. This is your host, Doug Foresta. This is a show where we help you, coaches, therapists, speakers, and authors to work less, earn more, and help more people through creative content marketing. And my guest today is Brian Basilico, and we're going to talk about something that we haven't really talked about very much, which is about how to use content to bring people back to your website. And I think this is a really important topic because there's more to content than just creating content. So I know you'll get a lot out of this episode. Stay tuned. I want to remind you as well that if you'd like to get a transcript of this episode or any episode, go ahead and visit coachzing.com/community. That's coachzing.com/community. So let me say a bit about Brian. I'll bring him right on. Brian Basilico is an internationally recognized best-selling author of It's Not About You, It's About Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World, and a speaker, trainer, and adjunct professor. He brings over 30 years of marketing experience to his award-winning internet marketing company, B2B Interactive Marketing, Inc. He's a syndicated blogger, sought-after guest expert, featured in Entrepreneur and Inc. magazines, articles, radio shows, and podcasts. And you can visit his main website at b2b -im.com. That's b to the number 2b/im.com, as well as mymarketingmagnet.com. That's mymarketingmagnet.com, and we'll put both of those links on the show page. Brian Basilico, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. And you know, those dashes and slashes, they're really easy to transpose.
I know. It's not slash, dash. Yeah, dash, hyphen.
It's all good.
So I thought this was really fascinating. You know, we were chatting for a moment before we started, and I think you have something really important to share with our listeners that we really haven't discussed that much before, which is it's one thing to create content, but then the issue of how to use content to bring people back to your website. And I guess my first question would be sort of a dumb question, but why is that important?
Well, if you're going to generate content, I mean, it's great that people are reading it, but more often than not, you know, they just finish reading it and they're done, and you're not getting them to take any kind of action. And the goal of writing content should be to hopefully get people to do something, whether that is join your email list or pick up the phone and call you, or at least be top of mind with them. So when I look at content development and content marketing, I always have a slant or a focus of how can I get them back to my website. And that way there, at least I have an opportunity to give them a call to action so that, you know, hopefully they're going to join my list or come back again or whatever it is that I'm asking them to do.
Right. So that kind of is a good segue into that question about like, what's the biggest mistake that you see? Because I know you work with a lot of, you know, coaches, speakers, and authors. Like, what's the biggest mistake that you see people make when they get out there and share content?
Well, there's two real main mistakes. The first one is that they're posting stuff to a website that doesn't have the main core information on it. So an example is I have one client that I just started working with who had a marketer set up a blog for them and then had a separate website for them, and they weren't connected. So, you know, what happened was they may read the blog and click on it and get back to their blog, but then they say, oh, please click here to go to our main website. That, you know, a lot of people aren't going to click through, and the number of people that would be very, very small. So the better way of doing it is to actually have the blog embedded in the website, if at all possible. If that's not probable, then every single blog post should have a call to action that says, visit this website at the very, very end. So, you know, at least there's a call to action inside of it. If you can't merge the two of them, that's one way. The second thing is, and I just was written up in an article about the fact that I've got 22 different websites. And it's true, I do. I have 22 different websites. Wow. But that's because a lot of the information is the same, but they're verticalized, meaning that I have one that's called Social Media for Realtors. I have Social Media for Professors. I've got Social Media for Chambers of Commerce. The information in all of those is the same, but the slant on which the information is presented is different. And they have different ways of using it and different needs. So the other mistake I see is people being too broad on their content development and not narrowing it down to specific niches. So if you have, most of us have different kinds of clients, and in my world, I mean, some are coaching clients, some are web development clients, some are, I speak. So when I'm looking at meeting planners and things like that, they don't really care about SEO or autoresponders. What they care is deliver what you promise. Are you going to get up there and what are your audience saying and stuff like that? They're not going to dig through all the minutia to get to the meat for them. So that's one of the reasons why if you spread yourself too thin by trying to get everybody's information in there, you tend to dilute it.
It's funny, more and more I've come to think that when people are overwhelmed, so many people say they're overwhelmed, that they're in fact doing too much instead of they're actually doing too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's true because, the bottom line with all of this stuff is it doing what you want it to do? And that is it generating sales? Is it generating contacts, creating conversations? And the key thing is measurement. And one of the things that you have to look at is you have to measure everything that you do. I mean, with 22 websites, I have 22 Google Analytics. And my expectations are different with each of them, because of some things are visited daily, some things are visited weekly. Where are they getting the most traffic from? It's a matter, if you measure things, then you could see what's working and stop doing the things that aren't.
So I'm curious for you then, what are some of the ways in which that when you in terms of creating content to bring people back to your website, what are some things that you recommend for people in terms of where to put content out there in order to get people to come back to your website?
Well, there's lots of different ways to do it. I mean, you can pick and choose one social media source wherever your audience is going to be, and that's another key is, where is your audience? What are they on? If you're doing personal coaching, chances are they're going to be on Facebook. If you're doing business-to-business coaching, chances they're going to be on LinkedIn. They may be on Twitter and stuff like that. So what I tend to do is make sure that I write, and here's a perfect example. This is my way of doing things. I write a blog a week. I don't write every single day, but I write that one blog, and it goes on multiple different websites. And then from there, I link it to Facebook. It goes on my Facebook page. It's shared on my personal page. And then it's put linked to Twitter, and then it's put on Google+. And so that one piece of content is now being spread across multiple social media to reach a broader audience. So it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, the one article usually takes me, an hour or two to write, and then I have it proofread, and then I launch it on Monday and then start sharing it out to all these different tools. And then I go, as the week goes on, I start to measure, okay, what kind of effectiveness is this having? And I look at it from, the topic standpoint, from the header standpoint, what was my catchphrase or headline, and, is this something my audience is interested in? And then I say, okay, this one was really successful and this one sucked. Do more of the successful ones, stop doing as much of the other.
What I love, too, about what you said is that you write one blog, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not writing 22 blogs.
Right. Yeah. It's one blog.
One blog, and you're getting out into all these places. So that's the thing that I've noticed for sure is that everyone who's been successful, that's come on here and talked about how they've had success, that you're not working hard, but you're working smart.
Exactly. Yes. And then the other nice thing that I got going too is just last month, November, I started a podcast. And the podcast has, so that's another thing that I'm doing, but the nice thing is the podcast and the article marketing or the blog that I'm doing are 100% aligned. So now not only am I touching multiple media, so now I've got it on iTunes, I've got it on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, but I also have, matching information to go along with that supports it. And usually the blog will drive people to the podcast, and the podcast will drive people to the blog, which all ends up coming back to the same thing. So there's definitely a strategy set up the nice thing about it is now I have a marketing calendar set out for the next 6 months. I know exactly what I'm going to post, exactly what I'm going to write, who I need to interview, all of those things. So it's all laid out in a nice, neat package. Well,
you obviously said been very successful in getting your message out in the world. I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions to ask on the show, which is about what's one of the funniest, craziest, or most creative pieces of content you've ever shared, and what the result of that was?
Okay. The funniest and probably the most prevalent one that got the most comments and the most feedback and likes and stuff like that was, and this is a true story, I was standing around, I play guitar in church, and we usually rehearse at like 3, and then we have the service at 5, and in between that time, I looked down at my cell phone and I said, hey, think about all the things that we used to carry around that we now have here in our hand. And within 10 minutes, a group of 4 of us just started rattling things off. I had 75 different things that we carry around in our pocket: a tape measure, answering machine, photo album, date calendar, calculator, voice recorder. I mean, you go on and on and on. So I rattled that off and I turned it into a blog post, and that got so much feedback because people kept wanting to add to it. It's like, you forgot
like
about
all
this,
the things that they have, right?
So that was very interactive, and people just loved that. So that was probably the one I think that fits that criteria.
God, as you were saying that, I was thinking, what else do I have? I know I have more than that.
Right. It's amazing when you think about it. It's these cell phones, even though they cost you $600 when it's all said and done, but think of all the things that you don't have to buy now because you got that in your hand.
Yeah, it is really amazing. And there's something about that really invites. It really it invited interaction, right? It invited people to interact with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was fun, I mean, it was fun to do. It was fun to read the comments, and that's what people, I think one of the things when people are doing content marketing is they tend to be almost too serious. I need to sound like an expert all the time, and there's a portion of that that's true. But I mean, people want to be entertained too, so there has to be that entertainment value, the story value of what you're putting out there. It has to show some personality, and by doing that, you'll get more interested in what you do.
Well, you may have just answered my next question, but that's okay if you have, which is
okay.
about ninja tips for our listeners about some ninja tips about sharing content. You may have some. I'm sure you have tons of them, but I'm curious if you have any advanced tips or ninja tips for our audience of what getting out and sharing content and having that stick.
Absolutely. The first thing is every single morning, most people do the exact same thing. They go get their coffee, they turn on their computer, and they go check their email. And if you would reverse that a little bit and start creating some content first, spend whatever time you normally would spend on email, create some content. And that is go into Evernote and maybe start writing down blog ideas, or actually start writing a blog, or find a picture that's something that would be shareable with your audience. And one of the things that I do pretty much every single morning is I got a simple program called I got to look at the name of it, but it's a program that has it creates these like little quote graphics, and so all I do is I find a quote and then I post that quote into a picture that I have, one that I've either taken or one that I get from a free background app, and it's called Word Swag. By the way, there's probably others out there that are like it. And so what I do is I just take the quote, put the picture up there, and at the very bottom of it has a small link to my website. And I throw that up on my blog. It actually is the blog on my book site, which is notaboutyou.com. It's NOTABOUT, the letter U. You can go see them. And if you look under the blog, there's one called Quotes. And so there I put all the quotes up there, then immediately gets pinned to Pinterest, and then it's linked back to my Facebook page. So within 5 minutes, I've created one thing, and I've touched 3 completely different social medias with that quote. And so within 5 minutes, I've done an entire day's worth of work. So what I'm saying is the first thing you should do is think about creating something content-wise that you could share every single day in 5 to 10 minutes, and then go on to the rest of the distractions that people are throwing at you, their emails and the things they're trying to sell you and returning phone calls and those kind of things. By doing that first, you're making sure that you're at least touching people once a day.
I like that. And that creates a lot of things. It creates consistency and trust, right? Because
right.
People are getting to see you. They know that you're doing every day. They see something from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely know that that's one of the biggest challenges for people is you start your day and that's exactly right. Then the phone rings and this happens and you're off in 20 different directions.
Right.
Yeah. And they say, I don't have time to create content.
Yeah, these are all this technology in front of us. I call the incredible distraction machine, because there's bing bobs boobs coming from everywhere. There's Facebook messages, there's tweets, there's emails, there's phone calls, there's texts. I mean, it's like attacking you all day long. So you need to take charge of that and find a way to at least get something out there that keeps you. People are aware of you and hopefully top of mind. And that the idea of the quote thing honestly came from another potential client that didn't hire me. But what they wanted is they came to me and said, okay, we're really interested, love your book, blah, blah, blah. We post these quote things and we're getting 1 million followers a day. What do we do with that? And I said, I can definitely help.
Yeah.
You get 1 million followers a day interacting with you. I can definitely turn that into cash.
Right.
But that, so they didn't do anything with it. They're still doing it. They still get a lot of followers. But, I said, hey, that's a great idea. Let me do it. And sure enough, it works. I'm not getting 1 million, but it's
what's crazy about that is goes back to what we were talking about. So you have 1 million eyeballs, but is it giving them? I mean, is it helping them? Is that helping them grow their business? Like, are they taking it all the way back and bringing it back into something?
Right, exactly. And that's a lot of people miss on that strategy part. It's really cool to get Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever have you, but they're missing the point of it, and that's one of the things I try to connect in my book. It's about relationships. It's not about you, it's about bacon. It's really about how do we create conversations? How do we do things that we would do face to face? It's really about creating human relationships. One of the things that I say all the time, any of my speeches or anything like that, is businesses do not do business with other businesses. People do business with people. And when you remember that you're dealing with people and working on relationships, then social media becomes a completely different animal.
It reminds me of, as you said that, I just had this image pop in my head of someone who goes to a huge conference or a huge expo, and there's thousands of people there, and they leave and they have 1,000 business cards, and they go, I got 1,000 business cards. This is incredible. And they go home and they put the business cards in little packets, and they keep them for safekeeping, but they never do anything. They don't call the person. They're just, right. I have 1,000 business cards.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. And it's, a lot of people collect them. And then here comes the other side of things, is that they wait too long to do anything, even if they did. Maybe they send an email out, or worse, they add them to an email list.
Right.
And then by
That's
the time
terrible,
the person gets that, they don't remember who the heck you are and why you're important to them, and then you become more noise. And
right.
At that point, you've lost all the energy that you put into that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would suggest, if you go anywhere to collect business cards, chances are if you're sitting back in your hotel room that night, drop a quick email off the card and just say, hey, nice meeting you here at the conference. That's all you got to do. And just, put your links in there. If they want to contact you later, they've got it. But that one quick touch is worth gold,
Very much so. Well, I'm really curious for you about what content, other than your own content, whether it's books, blogs, podcasts, however you like to take things in, motivate and inspire you.
All of the above. I read a lot of books. Usually I'm an audiobook guy, so I walk my dog every single day at 3:00. Dog walks up and nudges my arm and says, dude, come on, it's time to go. And so I've got my headphones ready, and I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to audiobooks. I attend a lot of other people's webinars just to continue to learn. And, so I'm, in this business, anybody who comes at you and says they know everything, run the other way, because nobody does.
Yeah.
It changes too darn fast, So the minute you think you got it down, there's a whole new philosophy or a whole new way of doing things, or Google changes the algorithms, or Facebook adds a new button, which they just did, and they're adding a new business button, which is really super cool. So, this stuff changes all the time, and you have to say, okay, well, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to my clients? It's you have to continually learn. So, yeah, all of those things inspire me, because I'm really I'm thirsty. And what I say is, you got to learn to earn. You have to keep up with the times. Way back yonder, I owned a commercial recording studio. And that was back in the 90s, way back at the beginning of the Internet. Today I walk around, we talked about the phone, and that was one of the reasons I was thinking about that. I can walk around with a program in there that I could plug in a mic into and do a full recording, better quality than the equipment I had back then, for a $10, $20 app. So
it's amazing.
You have to learn to evolve. That's pretty much it.
So true. I want to make sure, again, if people want to learn more about you and learn more about, all the cool strategies and stuff you shared today, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the simplest way to get a hold of me and find directions to all my stuff is b2b-im.com. That's B, the number 2, B, hyphen or dash, im.com. That'll link you to everything. And the other thing that I have is a free weekly podcast. Actually, it's biweekly, because I do one segment where I do training, and then I have an expert interview. And that's mymarketingmagnet.com. And on there, you'll see the podcast. You can also find that on iTunes. But it's a great place to kind of learn some of this stuff.
Brian Basilico, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your words of wisdom with our listeners. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So thanks everyone again for listening. And as always, remind you that nothing you've heard here will make any difference in your life unless you get out and take action. So go out there and make it happen. Till next time, this is Doug Foresta at the Coachzing Show.
Thanks for listening to the Coachzing Show. Need help getting your book out of your head and onto paper? Need help marketing your books or speaking engagements? We can do it for you. Go to Coachzing.com to learn more. Are you a Coach Zinger yet? Join the Coach Zingers community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers meet. You'll get exclusive access to private mastermind calls where you can get instant marketing help from industry experts. Plus, we'll help you forge deals and partnerships with other like-minded professionals. Go to CoachZing.com/community to join now.